This might be one of the best looking indie games you'll play this year, but that doesn't automatically mean it's one of the best games. Replaced launches April 14th, 2026, developed by Sad Cat Studios and published by Thunderful Publishing. And from the moment you see it, it's very clear what it's trying to do. It will grab your attention instantly, and honestly, it works. The 2.5D presentation here is kind of ridiculous in the best way possible. Pixel art mixed with modern lighting, depth and animation. It looks like a retro game that somehow got pulled into the present day without losing its identity. It's not just like stylish, it's breathtaking at times. The environments feel alive, the lighting feels intentional, even small details like reflections, movement in the background, subtle animations. They all add up to something that feels way bigger than what you usually expect from a side-scrolling game. And that's probably going to be your first reason to buy it. But visuals can only carry a game so far. So let's talk about what's underneath all that. At its core, Replaced is a 2.5D action platformer set in an alternate 1980s America. A kind of dystopian cyberpunk world where you play as REA-CH, an artificial intelligence trapped inside a human body, trying to figure out how to survive in a society that doesn't exactly welcome you. That setup alone is interesting, because it's not just about moving forward and fighting enemies. There's a narrative layer here about identity, control, and what it actually means to be human. And if the game leans into that properly, it could end up being one of those experiences that sticks with you after you finish it. But, and this is important, narrative-heavy games depend heavily on execution. If the story doesn't land, or if it feels disconnected from the gameplay, that whole emotional angle can fall flat pretty quickly. Now, gameplay-wise, this is where things feel a bit more straightforward. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. From what we've seen, the controls look very responsive and easy to pick up almost immediately. Movement is clean, combat is readable, and there's a kind of rhythm to how everything flows together. Platforming, fighting, progressing. It doesn't look like a game that's trying to overwhelm you with complexity. And that's actually one of its strengths, because instead of forcing you to learn a bunch of systems, it lets you focus on feeling the game. The timing, the movement, the flow of combat. That's the kind of design that can make a game really satisfying to play moment to moment. But at the same time, simplicity can also become repetition if the combat doesn't evolve enough, or if the platforming challenges don't introduce new ideas over time. There's a risk that the gameplay loop starts to feel familiar a bit too quickly, and that's something you should keep in mind, especially if you're planning to play this for longer sessions. Another thing that stands out, and this is a big positive, is the sound design. Everything from ambient noise to combat feedback feels sharp and intentional. It adds weight to what you're doing. It makes the world feel more grounded, more immersive. And when you combine that with the visuals, you get something that feels very cohesive. Like every part of the game is trying to support the same tone. But again, cohesion doesn't automatically mean depth. One of the biggest unknowns right now is how much variety the game actually offers. We've seen glimpses of combat, traversal, story moments, but how much does that expand over time? Are there new mechanics introduced later on? Does the difficulty scale in a meaningful way, or does it stay mostly the same from beginning to end? Because if it leans too heavily on its presentation without evolving the gameplay, that could hold it back. There's also the question of pacing. Games like this can sometimes struggle with balancing action and story. Too much focus on narrative and it slows down the gameplay. Too much action and the story loses impact. Finding that balance is harder than it looks, and right now, that's still something we can't fully judge until release. So, here's what it really comes down to. You should consider buying Replaced if you're looking for a visually striking, story-driven experience with smooth, accessible gameplay and a strong sense of style. Especially if you appreciate that retro meets modern aesthetic. Because this game absolutely nails that feeling, but you might want to wait. If you're looking for deep mechanics, high replayability, or something that constantly introduces new systems to keep things fresh. Because this feels like a game that's built around experience and atmosphere first, and depth second. And whether that works for you depends entirely on what you value. There's clearly a lot of talent behind this, a strong vision, a very clear identity, but like a lot of games that lean heavily on style, execution is everything. So what you're about to see next is exactly what matters. No talking, no opinions. Just raw gameplay. Watch how it moves, watch how it feels. Pay attention to whether that visual style actually translates into something satisfying to play. Because at the end of the day, that's what decides if Replaced is worth your time.